them, of course, nuclear and able to go for 30 years without refueling. Aircraft carriers, 11 aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world combined. And in the pride of the Navy is the USS Abraham Lincoln. That's the one that was, if you remember the sign, it said mission accomplished. It created all that flack in the news some time ago. By the way, interesting, I did not know until I was researching this. Did you know that came from the Navy and not President Bush? It was the Navy that wanted that sign up there on that's what you heard was Bush put that up, and it didn't have to do with the whole war. It had to do with that specific mission that the USS Abraham came back. Just an aside. Just please be careful when you read newspapers to check sources. And that, of course, to everyone. Good Bereans, check to see if these things be so. It's 1,092 feet long, 252 feet wide. Holds 90 planes and helicopters. Armor, classified. And again, unlimited miles, 20 to 25 years cruising with that nuclear reactor without needing refueling. This made the news back in January. There was another aircraft carrier, the Stennis. And the departure of the Stennis from the Gulf prompted the Iranian chief, Ayatollah Salehi, to threaten action if another carrier passed back into the Gulf. Quote, I recommend and emphasize to the American carrier not to return to the Persian Gulf. We are not in the habit of warning more than once, he said. Of course, the Navy promptly sent the USS Abraham Lincoln to the Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz, and it passed without incident. I remember that and know that because my youngest brother is stationed aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, and in fact we correspond regularly via email. He won't tell me what that classified armor is, though. I asked, but he says that he can't answer me. He can't tell me. But it's funny, I ask him a whole lot of questions, and most of it he has to ignore about where they are. Even though I'm reading it in the paper where they are, I know where they are, the Iranians know where they are, but he can't tell me that, confirm that he's over there. And in fact, last I heard, or he told me, when they come back it's going to come back to dock eventually, and they're going to stop in Florida. And at that point, if they do that, depends on how things go, I've been invited to come down and spend a couple days on the Abraham Lincoln. So should be interesting to witness this projection of power of the U.S. military might firsthand. Military might of Rome, about 100 years beyond our story time here at the time of Christ. When Hadrian was the Roman emperor, it was estimated that the Romans had a standing force of 3,750,000 men. We sang this. It was very cool that we sang that this morning. Let me read from Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. And at the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. I quote this because in that year that King Uzziah died, if not the exact year, it was the approximate year that Romulus founded Rome in about 1753 BC. So very interesting that at the time that here it is, what's going to become the greatest military force known at that time to date. I believe it spanned over 1,300 years, Rome. The year of its founding, Isaiah has a vision of the Lord. And he's seated. He's on the throne. He rules. And he rules. Jesus did come to defeat an army. He did come to defeat an enemy. But it wasn't Caesar. It was Satan. That was a far more important battle. It wasn't the ruler of Rome that Jesus came to contend with, but it was the ruler of this world. In fact, even indeed, our struggle is not primarily against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. In chapter 12 of John, where he had quoted from Isaiah, let me just read here. But though he had performed so many signs before them, yet they were not believing in him, that the word of Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled, which he spoke, Lord, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Just prior to that, Jesus had said, now judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world shall be cast out. When Adam had sinned, we find many of our fundamental doctrines and understanding of the gospel, it finds its root. The seed plot of the gospel is found in Genesis, particularly in Genesis 1 to 11. And if you're here for the Sunday school, that's what we're going to be speaking about this morning, a little bit later this morning. When Adam disobeyed God, he who was made in the image of God and had unbroken fellowship with God, who was set what to, and who was the ruler of this world, abdicated that position. It was broken, and in so doing, God says, in the day you eat of this, you will die. And of course, physical death did come, but it was death, life is found in God. So it's that connection to he who is life and is our life is broken. And from that time on, Adam and his descendants, Adam is our head, Adam is our representative. From that time on, we fall under the kingdom of darkness, and we're under the rulership, or the God little g of this world, as Paul says, of Satan. And it is this, how does one contend with Satan? What needed to happen to defeat Satan? Well, we're not talking about just a war, for obviously Satan lost that war and was expelled from heaven. But he had legal jurisdiction over us based on what Adam had done. Now, if you say that's not fair, well, God says he was a good representative, and he was our representative. I'm going to trust the Lord. But if it's not fair that Adam represented us, then it's not fair that God should come in the flesh and Jesus Christ then should represent us. And by faith in him and him taking the place at the cross, that's not fair either. But in God's economy, he says, yes, this is it. He says, what you cannot do, a price that you cannot pay because in paying it would destroy you. I will come down from heaven. I will walk among you. I will keep all the demands that the law ever required. And I will do the second Adam, the last Adam, Jesus, the last Adam, all that the first Adam failed to accomplish, he would accomplish. He would do this by, the Pharisees were very meticulous about trying not to break the law. They would go to great lengths to describe the details and what it is to break the law and what's not, even to this day. To do work. They will argue over whether if your pilot light goes out on your oven, can you light it on the Sabbath? No, that's doing work. Can you throw a switch, turn a light switch on? No. So they leave their lights on all day so when it comes dark they don't have to flip the switch because it's work. And they would do these things, and yet, of course,